Today we're going to install the K&N high flow air charger system on this 2019 new body style GMC Sierra. Now this is the same install as the 5.3 and the 6.2 liter V8s. It also is the same install as the Chevy Silverado. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is disconnect our negative battery terminal. Now it's going to happen with a 10 millimeter. I'm going to pull that off and put a rag in between the terminal and the cable. Before you do this, go ahead, if you got presets on your radio, write all those down. You're probably going to lose those. Also, you may have to put in a security code. Get that either through your manual or call the dealership if that is required. Next, we'll remove our crankcase ventilation tube. That comes off very easily. This little silver thing is a button. You just push in on that and the tube slides right off. Down below, you got the exact same thing, but it's on the opposite side. You can't see it, but I'm gonna do the same thing. Push in on it and pull off the tube. Before we release this plenum, what we have to do is take this bracket loose. This is holding a wire harness. We've got a couple of places where that wire harness is got push pins that's holding in place. So we're gonna pop that out. Up top and also down below. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to this bolt right here. This is a 10 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. Now, once we take that plenum off, we can pull this bracket off of the plenum and reinstall it and support our wire harness again. All right, next we're going to go ahead and pull off our mass air flow sensor cable. What we do is this red clip, we just pull that back. Once that red clip is pulled back, we can push down and pull that cable out, push it out of the way. Now we're going to go ahead and loosen up the band clamps, go into the air box, and also go into the throttle body so we can pull off the plenum. All right, now we're going to go ahead and pull this loose from the air box. Then once that's loose from the air box, we can go ahead and turn that plenum to unclock it and pull it off of the plenum. Now, as for this bracket, if you want to still support that wire harness, you can absolutely reinstall that. Best way to do that is rotate this about 90 degrees and you can wiggle it out. Then you can reinstall it to the alternator and reinstall the wire harness. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take off our hood latch arm. We're going to hold that for later because it's going to go back on. These two bolts have to come out. They're a T15 Torx. So we got a Torx driver, it's T15. Go ahead and pull those out. All right, we've got 10 plastic push pins that need to come out so the top radiator valance can come off. Let me show you how to pull those off. Just get that loosened up. Make sure you don't break these because you want to retain them for reinstallation. And then save it for later. Do all 10 of them like that. All right, now the factory intake tube needs to dislodge from the factory air box. So the way we're going to do that is take this push pin loose. Once that pops out, we can go ahead and pull it free from the factory air box just by pulling it forward. All right, so our main harness has to come loose from our air box at this connection right here. If you have a 90-degree pick tool, you can slide it right up underneath there and pry up just a little bit, and that should pull that clip loose, and you can slide it right off. And we can go ahead and pull our wire harness loose from the housing too. When we come down the other side of the harness, we'll find one location where the wire harness needs to be pulled away from the housing. All right, now the factory air box is actually only held in by this one nut right here. So we're going to take a 10 millimeter, we're going to pull that loose. Now, as I pull this loose, you want to be really careful. I'm going to lift up. I've got a couple of rubber grommets that are holding it in place on the back side. So I'm going to pull it up, pull it loose from the first rubber grommet. Once it's loose, I can kind of rotate it forward and pull it loose from the second rubber grommet. Just wiggle it out. Now we can go ahead and start putting together our K&N airbox. So we're going to take from our factory airbox those 2 rubber grommets we had to pull through the vehicle, and on the other side here we've still got our mass airflow sensor. We're going to go to that in a little bit. Take these 2 rubber grommets, put them on the back side of our K&N airbox. We've got our fitting that our filter attaches to. We're going to line that up. Now that we've got that lined up, we're going to go ahead and use our provided screws. We got the Allen screw, lock washer, and flat washer. Line it up and get it started. Before you tighten that down, make sure you can get the other side started as well. Then we're going to tighten those down with a 4mm Allen wrench. Next, we're going to turn to the side directly above this hole. We're going to have another threaded hole here. We're going to take our bracket, set that bracket in place, and we've got our 6mm bolt from our kit. We've got a lock washer and flat washer going through that. We're going to line that up to this bracket. Now that 6mm bolt will be tightened down with a 10mm socket. Just get this stuff nice and snug. Next, what we want to do is find our grommets. We're going to go to the top portion and fit the grommets in place. We got 3 of them supplied and 3 holes. All right, now our K&N airbox is going to go in just the way the factory airbox came out. We're going to line up these 2 rubber grommets to these 2 holes. And once we drop it into place, we're going to let the box run down the factory's threaded stud, and then we're going to go ahead and put the factory nut back in place. All right, now we're going to go ahead and line up the intake tube to the new K&N airbox. Once we get that lined up and fit into place, we'll go ahead and reinstall that push pin to hold it in place. Now our main harness needs to slide back into place onto our new bracket. Now we're going to go ahead and install our hump coupler to our airbox. We're also going to use 2 band clamps. The band clamps we're going to use, there's 4 of them the exact same size in our kit. They're the medium-sized band clamps. Those are the ones we're going to use. What I like to do when I put my band clamps on, make sure the bolts are facing the same direction. Then we're just going to slide that hump coupler right over top here, and using an 8mm, we're going to get the band clamps, this band clamp nice and snug, and this one we're just going to kind of get it in place where it doesn't just slip off. All right, now for our coupler going to our throttle body, this is designed to have 2 different engine options that it will work with, the 6.2 liter V8 and the 5.3. If you have the 6.2, you're going to use the 084107. We don't have the 6.2, so I'm going to set that to the side. We have the 5.3, so we're going to use the 08497. We're going to take that, face that, the smaller end towards the throttle body. We're going to take our smaller of the band clamps that we have. It's going to have a 056 stamped onto it. And we're going to slide that right over top of the throttle body. Now, once it's firmly planted onto the throttle body, I like to go ahead and just put this other band clamp on there. This is the same type of band clamp that would be on our hump connector. And then using an 8mm, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down this band clamp on the throttle body. Our number 64 band clamp, I just like to get it snug enough to where it just is, doesn't slide off, because I still have to slide another tube inside there. All right, next what we want to do is transfer our mass airflow sensor from our factory box into our K&N tube. Now we have a mass airflow sensor adapter. On the back side of that adapter, you're going to see a couple of little feet. We'll also have a gasket that's going to install on the back side. That gasket has an adhesive attached to it, so what we're going to do is peel away that adhesive protector, and then we can stick the gasket to the adapter. Now make sure it's nice and lined up. All right, so now once we set this adapter in place, one thing I want to point out is these holes are going to be slightly offset. If you notice, this hole right here is a little bit closer to this corner than this hole is to this corner. That's the proper orientation. This mass airflow sensor, when it goes in place, has to be going in the same direction, so make sure the holes are aligned right. Now we're going to take our provided Allen head screw along with a flat washer. Go ahead and get that lined up here. And then another one. And we're going to tighten these down, just get them nice and snug with a 4mm Allen head. Now we're just going to set this to the side. Use a T20 Torx bit to remove the factory mass airflow sensor. Now, this is the direction of the airflow. So what we need to do is make sure when it comes out, it slides in going the same direction. Our holes should line up on our mass airflow sensor, and we're going to put in our provided hardware to hold that mass airflow sensor in place. We're going to tighten that down with a 3mm Allen head. And just get them nice and snug. Don't over tighten them. All right, next we're going to go to this end of the tube. You'll see a threaded hole. That is for our 90-degree elbow for our crankcase ventilation tube. Now it's really easy to cross thread these, so what we're going to do is get it nice and lined up, nice and gentle, and we're going to get it hand tight. Once we get it hand tight, we're going to take 2 full turns with a wrench. Now this needs to end straight up and down like this. So we'll take a 3/4 inch wrench, do 2 full turns. Now we're going to go ahead and take our intake tube, first fit it into the hump coupler, then once it's into the hump coupler, we'll rotate it down and get it fit into the intake coupler. Now once that's all lined up, we'll get it set in place for a perfect fit. Then we're going to tighten down our hose clamps with the 8mm and then also reconnect our mass airflow sensor. All right, now we need to go ahead and assemble our crankcase ventilation tube. Now I've already done this end. I'll show you how to do the opposite end. First, take your hose clamp, set it in place. Take the end and make sure, what I like to do is make sure that this is lined up with this over here. Fit it in place into the hose, pull the hose clamp in and tighten that down with a 1/4 inch ratchet. Once that's nice and snug, we can go ahead and fit this over top that end and it just presses in place. Same thing on this side. Okay, now our largest band clamp is going to be reserved for our cone air filter. We're gonna go ahead and fit that in place. Go ahead and put the air filter down into the air box and then slide it over top of the coupler. Now we're gonna take our 8mm, tighten down that band clamp. All right, next we will take our lid and line it up to the 3 rubber grommets we installed and fit it down in place. All right, now we can go ahead and reinstall our upper radiator valance. Just goes in the exact same way it came out and use the factory push pins to put it back in place. Next, go ahead and put the lever arm, slide that back in place, and put the factory screws back in and tighten them back down. All right, now we can go ahead and reconnect the negative battery terminal. Well, that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online.